don't know how powerful your voice is. They don't want to hear another legislator. They don't want to hear somebody else that's advocating. Sometimes they just want to hear that personal story.
The only way to stop asbestos-related cancers is to ban it.
About 40,000 Americans die every year of asbestos-caused diseases.
I'm Bob Sussman, and for the last 5 or 6 years, I've had the privilege of being ADAO's counsel, which is an activity that has kept me extremely busy, almost nonstop, and continues to create a lot of work. So I'm late in my career, although it's not over, and I've done quite a bit in the course of my professional life. A lot of my years were spent in private practice representing industry. I was the head of the environmental practice at Latham & Watkins for a number of years. I also had 2 stints at US EPA. I was the number 2 person at the agency during the Clinton administration, and then went back under President Obama to be the policy counsel to Administrator Lisa Jackson, and I was at EPA for approximately 5 years. And since I left EPA, I've returned to the practice of law as a sole practitioner, and my practice has been closely linked to the Toxic Substances Control Act and other environmental laws, and my clients have basically been nonprofit advocacy organizations, work closely with NRDC and many other groups, big and small. So I think I'm doing some penance for my years representing big bad industry. So I wanted to pick up where Eric left off and talk about the world of asbestos, primarily at EPA, since 2016. And this has been a busy period. Asbestos has been front and center, I think, in a way that we haven't really seen since the 1980s, when there was a surge of regulatory activity. And the big things that are going on, have been going on, include asbestos ban legislation, which has been on the front burner for many years and is still on the front burner. EPA's risk evaluation and risk management work under TSCA on asbestos, the focus on the legacy risks of asbestos, asbestos mandatory reporting, which Eric mentioned, and finally, court cases, from our perspective, to force EPA to do its job and get EPA to step up, from industry's perspective, to try to constrain EPA and slow EPA down. So ADAO has been central to all of this activity and has spearheaded public health and legal advocacy with EPA. And I think it's fair to say that we've won some important battles, but the war is certainly not over. And we have much more to do. I just wanted to give you a rundown of the various activities that EPA has initiated since 2016. And 2016 is important, of course, because That's when Congress amended TSCA through the Lautenberg Act. And a central issue in the legislative debate about TSCA amendments was the 1991 court decision that, as Eric said, certainly took the wind out of EPA sails on asbestos and more broadly crippled EPA's chemical risk management program. And throughout the legislative debate, there was a lot of discussion that if TSCA doesn't give EPA authority to ban asbestos, then it's a broken law, needs to be fixed. And so asbestos was the poster child for the shortcomings and deficiencies of the law. And indeed, when he signed the Lautenberg Act, President Obama referred to asbestos and said, if we can't ban asbestos, we're not doing our job, and that's why we need to fix the law. So with that as the backdrop, EPA's been under a lot of pressure under TSCA to address asbestos. And here briefly are the things that EPA has done chronologically. In 2016, it prioritized asbestos for the first set of risk evaluations under TSCA. In 2020, it completed its Part 1 chrysotile asbestos risk evaluation. In 2021, it initiated its Part 2 evaluation to address legacy asbestos exposure. In 2022, EPA proposed its Part 1 rule building on the chrysotile risk assessment to regulate 6 chrysotile conditions of use. Then in 2023, EPA finalized its TSCA reporting rule, something that should have been done years earlier, and that rule required industry to report on its activities under TSCA. And then in 2024, EPA issued its draft risk evaluation, and also in 2024, it finalized the chrysotile Part 1 risk management rule. Even though EPA has been busy on asbestos, the results have been, from our perspective, pretty disappointing and inadequate. And I've listed here the things that we think have not fulfilled their potential that EPA has done. And that certainly includes EPA's work on the Part 1 risk evaluation, which EPA's Chemical Advisory Committee lambasted as being deficient and inadequate. And it also involves EPA's unwillingness to address legacy asbestos, which in the end required 2 sets of litigation before EPA would actually commit to doing a legacy risk assessment. So as we look forward, the jury is out in a couple of critical areas. The first is how well will the Part 1 rule stand up to judicial review in the Fifth Circuit? Will EPA effectively evaluate and address the risks of legacy asbestos? And importantly, how will EPA use the information that it gets from the asbestos reporting rule? Our role has been to hold EPA accountable in the courts and in the policy arena. We helped to mount the successful legal action holding that EPA must address legacy asbestos use risks under TSCA. We obtained a court decision which mandated that EPA undertake reporting under TSCA on current asbestos products and exposure. We filed a petition for review of the EPA Part 1 risk evaluation and settled that case. We also filed a suit against EPA to compel the court to set a deadline for initiating and completing the Part 2 legacy risk evaluation. And as a result of that suit, EPA has an enforceable deadline of December 1, 2024 to issue a final legacy evaluation. I wanted to briefly identify the flaws with the Part 1 rule. These are some of the issues that we may see in the litigation, although, as I think Linda mentioned, the litigation was initially brought by industry, and industry has a number of concerns about the rule, which they will undoubtedly put before the court. But from our perspective, we think that the rule rewards Occidental Chemical and the American Chemistry Council with a 12-year phase-out of asbestos in the chloralkali industry, which we really think is unnecessarily long and will have the effect of prolonging exposure to asbestos, use of asbestos, disposal of asbestos in that industry. We are also very concerned that this rule is what I would call a mini ban. In fact, it only addresses 6 chrysotile conditions of use, and it ignores the other asbestos fibers entirely. And so I think what we're left here is controls on a small number of existing asbestos uses, but the door remains wide open to other issues of chrysotile or perhaps other uses of the 5 other fibers. The rule does not meaningfully address air, wastewater, and disposal risks, which we think is a clear violation of TSCA's mandate. And it also fails to address the ongoing risks of asbestos in gaskets that are found in several industrial sectors and in brakes and other asbestos products in vehicles. So EPA did face intense industry opposition, which was spearheaded by ACC and the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They questioned EPA science and worker exposure limits. They claimed that the rule threatened the availability of chlorine and caustic soda for drinking water treatment. And in the end, I think that the pressure applied by industry had its effect on EPA, and EPA did accommodate industry on a number of important issues. If the Part 1 rule is remanded or vacated, it may be in limbo for several years. And so I think that forces us to once again focus on what legislation has to offer. And it offers quite a bit: no litigation, long-term certainty, hopefully an expedited chlor-alkali phase-out, an immediate end to asbestos imports, a ban of all 6 asbestos fibers in all present and future conditions of use. And it also enables EPA to devote resources to Part 2. So legislation will lock in a comprehensive asbestos ban, whereas right now the outlook for EPA regulation enacting a comprehensive ban is pretty uncertain. So I'm going to stop there.
Great presentation, then there'll be more to come.
Okay.